Pamela Ann Smith went for a walk on the evening of August 24th, 1975. She was a newlywed of just 6 months. She and Gerald Smith had been married earlier that year in February. They owned a dairy farm along Indiana 31, east of Greensfork, Indiana. Originally from Covington, Kentucky, Pamela had moved to Indiana with her family and had graduated high school in Richmond, Indiana. She was the daughter of June and William McAllister. Pamela was born on September 24th, 1951. On the day she went missing, she was 30 days away from her 24th birthday. Pamela was 5 feet 1 inch tall, 110 pounds, and had long brown hair. 7 agonizing months would pass before Pamela would be found in a cornfield by a highway worker. Immediately I had questions. How was she not spotted at harvest time in October and November of 1975? How was she not spotted during spring planting of 1976? Maybe the field was left fallow for that year. Maybe she was on the edge of the field near the road where it is sometimes overgrown. I don't think I have the answer to those questions. Investigators did theorize, however, that Pamela had been in that spot the whole time. A Henry County highway worker, Mr. Reed Vincent, was running a road grader. If you don't know what that is, you probably didn't grow up on a gravel road like I did. It's a big vehicle made for scraping the rock road flat again. The driver's seat is pretty high up, so he must have had a much better view than a car or a truck passing by. As people drive on a gravel road, ruts are formed where their wheels are rolling, gravel gets high in the middle and on the sides, so a road grader comes through on a regular schedule and scrapes it all back into place. This particular fellow said he saw the body 2 months before, but thought it was a dead animal. This time he saw that it was actually the body of a human. If you find yourself frustrated with the fellow on the road grader, take a deep breath and remember that nobody was prepared for the number of bodies that the violent crime wave of the 1970s and 1980s was going to leave behind. No one was prepared for this. His brain was programmed to interpret what he saw first as a deer and not a human. Pamela's farm was located east of Greensfork. Her body was found west of Greensfork, near Strawn, Indiana. Pamela's cause of death was undetermined according to her death certificate. She suffered a skull fracture, but the death certificate mentions that they were unsure if that fracture had happened before or after her death. I wonder if a forensic anthropologist has seen that skull fracture since then. She had also suffered a wound to the right arm from a sharp instrument. I was unable to find out if she was clothed when she was found. One article mentioned that she was tentatively identified by clothing found at the scene and her wedding ring. It sounds like her clothes were found there, but we don't know for sure if they were on her body or off of her body. I didn't find any description of animal activity scattering the remains. Her husband estimated that he had put over 2,000 miles on his car driving around looking for her in the months after her disappearance. He theorized that she had been grabbed and forced into a car. He might be right. She was found so far away from where she originally had gone for the walk that it's incredibly unlikely that she walked to the place that she was killed. Whoever killed her wasn't particularly interested in hiding her body. They weren't worried about getting caught. They weren't worried about evidence. What else was happening in August of 1975 near Henry County? Well, on the evening of August 20th, 1975, just 4 days earlier, in Hancock County, just a few miles away, 3 young girls were picked up by Thomas Edward Williams in a station wagon. They had been hitchhiking after getting some items at an East Indianapolis gas station. Williams raped the youngest girl, and all 3 were slashed with a knife and left for dead in a cornfield in Greenfield, Indiana. All 3 would survive. Very recently, DNA would connect Thomas Edward Williams to this vicious attack. Also on the morning of August 20th, 1975, Cheryl Boland was abducted, raped, and murdered. Her body would be found in the spring of 1976 as well. Could Thomas Edward Williams have committed both of those crimes? He abducts Cheryl in the morning in Monrovia, halfway between Indianapolis and Terre Haute. He rapes, murders, and dumps her south of Terre Haute. He heads back east, and that evening he encounters the 3 girls who survived his brutality. 4 days later, he is driving along the same east-west stretch of central Indiana and encounters Pamela Ann Smith. Sometimes a cluster of crimes are not related at all. But what if they are? Cheryl was young. The 3 survivors were young. Pamela was petite and probably looked quite young to this man. Could Thomas Edward Williams be responsible for all 3 of these crimes? I think it is quite possible. Stephen Timothy Judy is also a possible suspect at this time. Jeffrey Lynn Hand was in the custody of the state hospital in 1975, so it can't be him. Pamela Ann Smith had a long life ahead of her. She was a new bride on a dairy farm. She lived in the peace and quiet of the country. It should have been an idyllic time. It should have been just the beginning of her life story. Rest in peace, Pamela Ann Smith and Cheryl Boland.